Last week, I discussed an enemy that we women often struggle with, and that's a lack of self-confidence in taking risks. And I stated two reasons that we may be more risk-averse than men. The first is, as girls, we're not given as many opportunities to learn to take risks when we're younger, and that carries over to our adult life. And the second thing is that as women, we often think we have to be 100% prepared before we take a risk. No one is ever 100% prepared. Well, today I want to share three factors that seem to skew the research a bit when it comes to women and our willingness to take risks. The first is that research has found that people who are stronger, taller, and more attractive are perceived to be more willing to take a risk. Now that automatically puts us women at a disadvantage because women on average are not as tall as men, and on average we don't have the muscle mass, so we're not as strong as men. Therefore, we may be more quickly seen as people who are averse to taking risks. The second is that stress influences whether we're willing to take a risk or not. Men tend to increase their risk-taking when they're under stress. And it probably won't surprise you to learn that women tend to decrease their risk-taking when they're under stress. I think that's why it's important for us to work together as men and women, put our heads together so that when stress is around us, we make wise decisions. Perhaps a man is pulling us women along to say, you need to take this risk. At the same time, we women can work at tapping down a risk when it's unnecessary. Put our heads together and we can make wiser decisions. And the third is, risk-taking is usually defined in research, or in the past has been defined, by how a man perceives risk and what the man is willing to do. And we are not men. Though we may be hesitant to take some risk, like men are, there are areas where women shine. For example, women are more willing to take social risk, especially when it has to do with any type of injustice. We're more willing to bring up an unpopular idea at a work meeting or in a community setting. We're more willing to speak up if we think someone is being treated unjustly. And I think that's a great gift that we women have. We also are more willing to take a risk, such as a career change, if we think it will have a positive impact on our family. However, if we think it's going to have a negative impact, generally we're not willing to take that risk. Well, I think back to Genesis 1, where God made both man and woman to be co-workers in governing the earth. And I think the difference between men and women, especially that we display in risk-taking, is one of the reasons why we need to work together. We temper each other's approach, and perhaps when we work together and when it comes to risk-taking, we'll make wiser risks and have more positive outcomes than if we worked alone. Well, I don't deny that risk-taking is hard for many of us. But if you want to live a life of fulfillment, it requires you being willing to take risks. Well, the challenge that I left last week is for you to reflect on an area where you've been nudged to take a risk, yet you are afraid of failing. I ask you to pray about it and seek God's wisdom and to meditate on 2 Timothy 1:7. Well, this week I want to add to that challenge. Write down all the reasons why you're afraid to take that risk that you're being nudged to take. Then review the list and ask yourself, what is the likelihood that what you're afraid of will really happen? And what if it did happen? Would it really be that bad? And most importantly, what are you going to miss out on if you don't take the risk? Well, if you haven't downloaded the free PDF Learning to Be God's Risk Taker, it's still available for you to download. Well, until next week, be undeterred.